From the Berklee Performance Center in Boston, Massachusetts, the Monitor Channel is proud to present Mort Sahl.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Listen, we sure appreciate your coming. You know, never take that for granted, and by any means. And this is a little different than most shows you've seen. It's not anything like a talk show, and we hope to give you the other side. Essentially, well, we claim modestly to be the last word on a lot of subjects that everybody deals with all day. You certainly have enough. You've got 210 channels out there or more, but everybody's saying, pretty much the same thing. Before I left Los Angeles, we came in a week ago to put this together. They're having mass meetings out there. There's a professor from NYU who doesn't believe in the Holocaust. He's having meetings out there to convince people that it never happened. And some of you may remember when Reagan went to the Bitburg Cemetery. That's what came to mind. I was just thinking about this and what was going on in L.A. I happened to have been at the White House on a social visit, and Elie Wiesel, famous Jewish victim and / historian, went in there and asked Reagan not to go to Bitburg, to go to the cemetery. He said, "Don't go to lay a wreath on the tomb of the Waffen-SS and honor them, etc." And Reagan didn't know what to say to the guy. He didn't know how to get rid of him. And Robert McFarland, do you remember him? Mr. Thorazine from the hearings? Remember him? Remember how dry he was? So anyway, McFarland ran out to Bush and he said, "Elie Wiesel is driving me crazy and the president's got to leave. He's got to go to Andrews Air Force Base. The Air Force One is waiting for him. And Reagan is going out the door, and Elie Wiesel was on his ankle, and Reagan is like this, Elie Wiesel is saying, 'You can't do it. You're Ronald Reagan. You're not supposed to have a mean bone in your body, friend of the Jewish people and everything.' And they were halfway to the helicopter, and then Bush ran in, being the point man, what the CIA calls a fireman, a guy that's available on weekends, Sundays and everything, for anything. He never questions it. And Wiesel then said something to the president. I could barely hear them from my vantage point, which wasn't too strategic at the time. And he said, you can't go there to honor them. You can't go there to honor them. And Bush ran out and interceded between them and he said, he's not going to the cemetery to honor them. He's going there to make sure they're still dead. So now, we draw on a lot of sources on the show. That was just an example. There's going to be, the debate's been called off in New Hampshire among the 5 Lilliputians looking for the Democratic. No, I know a lot of you here in this area are basically loyal to Senator Tsongas. And I got a funny call before I left Hollywood. Senator Tsongas or Bill Clinton. ROTC, huh? Now, a lot of you younger people in the audience, you're wondering what that beef is about, huh? Why does a guy have to be in the service to prove he's an American? That's pretty hokey, isn't it? Pretty dated, I would think young people would think. So I just have to take you back to Vietnam. We were a very divided country. It wasn't wonderful like now. It was a lot of bad feeling. And this Clinton controversy over serving your country will take us back to the bad feeling there was around Dan Quayle. See, during the Vietnamese War, I don't want to take too much time, but just to sum it up succinctly, what happened during the Vietnamese War, all the Republicans were in the National Guard, see? And all the Democrats were in Canada, so... What a country. Anyway, so looking at these Democrats now, even though we've had some respectful applause for the front runners, Tsongas, if not Bill Clinton, and as Shelley Winters said to me in Hollywood last week, all us progressives are behind Tom Markin. Leave it to the liberals. If they're backing you, you better look for a daytime job. So, anyway, anyway, you don't have anybody around like Adlai Stevenson. You know, when I was first working, I was I don't know what made me think of this, but I was at the Houston Baptist Conference when he was running against Eisenhower, you know, and they got up to introduce him, and it was this huge audience, all Baptist ministers, you know, looking at him. And they said, here he is, the Democratic nominee, Adlai Stevenson. And he walks out there in front of this crowd, and all he could hear were his feet, you know. And he turned to the head of the Baptist Conference, and he said, is something wrong? And the guy said, well, you know, these people have they've all been instructed to vote for Eisenhower by Reverend Norman Vincent Peale. So Stevenson tore his speech up. So the head of the conference said, aren't you going to say anything? He said, just this. He said, speaking as a Christian, which he really wasn't, he was a Unitarian. He said, we pray to whom it may concern. He said, speaking as a Christian, I find the Apostle Paul appealing and the Apostle Peale appalling. And he left. So, anyway. Now, we're going to look into that tonight. We're going to look into politics, as I said, and we're going to, in addition to that, we're going to get personal, because after all, what's the use of winning an election if you can't have a good life? So we're going to talk about love and work and why Freud chose those two rarefied areas as a definition of a complete life. So, as you know now, women don't want to get married. If you look at any of the talk shows with Phil Donahue or Geraldo or any of those people, if it isn't somebody saying, my parents molested me, it's a career woman saying, I don't want to get married. That's supposed to be a big breakthrough, as you know. Actually, I don't know if it's come as a bulletin to women, but men never wanted to get married. So, it's dangerous. We've got a nation here that's in danger of extinction very soon, because you got 250 million people here, and no one wants to get married with the exception of an occasional Catholic priest. So, straight ahead, the news and review. We'll be right back with you. Thank you. Thank you. This section is about the news. Don't expect all the news. We're going to focus on New Hampshire and the elections and the State of the Union speech, which you're probably sick of, but we ask you to put up with it just one more time, because we think, it's like opening up an aviation magazine. You see a cutaway of the plane, you might get an angle of the plane you had not considered prior to that. So, I know you're going to say, and you might not, but let's take a look. Okay.
They asked me what's the difference. Well, let me tell you guys. Let me tell you 250 mournful pundits what the difference was. I didn't have to go ask Senator Kennedy if I could declare war or go on and move these troops. I didn't have to.
You notice you keep nominating other people, but he selects Kennedy to represent the leadership of the party. Just checking. Okay.
Listen, if I'd have listened to the leader of the United States Senate, George Mitchell, Saddam Hussein would be in Saudi Arabia and you'd be paying $20 a gallon for gasoline. Now try that one on for size.
Therefore, the Gulf War at $43 billion was a bargain. Right?
What the president has to do is make the link. Economics equals education equals economics equals education.
I'm getting sick and tired. I am every single night hearing one of these carping little liberal Democrats jumping all over my you know what. And I can't wait for this campaign.
Senator Harkin, you're said to be old-fashioned, too liberal. Governor Brown, you're supposed to be way out, strange, Governor Moonbeam. Senator Kerry, aside from your health care plan, you're said to be short on specifics. Governor Clinton, you are very specific. Senator Tsongas, you are said to be boring, not good on television, although people can judge for themselves tonight, and a Greek from Massachusetts.
If you win the election, you become president. If you lose, you have to diagram all of Bush's sentences. But that's all. Cokie Roberts has been called by Diane Sawyer, no less, one of the three most powerful women in Washington, along with Nina Totenberg and Linda Wertheimer at NPR. And she says her main priority is to clean up the moral act of guys like Gary Hart. She now says that openly, and you saw the lack of respect she gave to the candidates. So this brings up a point. How come only liberals have sex scandals? I mean, why? Don't you wonder why the Republicans never have bad luck? I mean, okay. Now, you remember there was a sex scandal once during the Reagan administration. A member of his kitchen cabinet named Alfred Bloomingdale was 83 and had an affair. Remember Vicki Morgan? And she came forward and she said, I asked him to take care of me and he won't. So I've got these videotapes that show Alfred Bloomingdale and three highly placed members of Reagan's cabinet cavorting with me in a lascivious manner. And that was the tip of the iceberg. That was the beginning of a sex scandal, but fortunately some of us who were perceptive politically saw this for what it was. It was a cynical attempt to humanize the Reagan administration. March.
Mr. Speaker, the President of the United States.
You know, I'm not sure we've absorbed the full impact, the full import of what happened. But communism died this year.
Not to speak of capitalism. Oh, man.
Yeltsin says he and Mr. Bush are on a first-name basis.
Yeah, well, Yeltsin, of course, asked Bush for $650 million, or else he threatened to go communist again. And Bush ought to have a logo on the limousine. Presidential limousine should say that this country carries only $5 in change.
I cannot take no for an answer. You must cut the capital gains tax on the people of our country.
Look at the Democrats. It looks like a mural, right? Okay.
Those of you who say, oh no, someone who's comfortable may benefit from that. You kind of remind me of the old definition of the Puritan, who couldn't sleep at night, worrying that somehow, someone, somewhere, was out having a good time.
Of course, the line is uncredited. It's H.L. Mencken's line. Mencken also said that an idealist could look at a cabbage and a rose and decide at that moment that the rose would make great soup.
I look at hard times and I make this vow. This will not stand.
He's down there. We've positioned this program as an alternative for the viewer. The viewer has two choices. They can watch the president or they can watch us watch the president.
This is a channel that's owned by HBO called Comedy Central, and they asked for the feed so that they could, in effect, trash the president. And this is fascinating because CNN didn't want to give it to them. They thought it was going too far. And, it created a backlash for Bush, if you look at these guys long enough. And they insisted, under their First Amendment rights, and an HBO lawyer went into federal court in New York and started yelling about the tradition of Lenny Bruce. And none of these guys, of course, are old enough to have ever seen Lenny Bruce. But you know what they like about him mostly? Lenny Bruce became a metaphor for the liberals, not because he told the truth or even because he swore, but mostly because he died. That's the part. You know, that's extremely appealing.
And so we move on together.
Yeah, I want to talk to you about that. Are we going with him? This is a new book about President Bush, which I wanted to wind up with. It's about his life thus far. And if you buy it, he'll mail you pages as he continues to live his life. There's a binder here. Although I imagine one day is pretty much like the next. President Bush's life. I'm up to chapter 11. Don't tell me how it comes out. Straight ahead, Roger Ailes. We'll be right back. Thank you. We're starting a new feature tonight. Let's take a look at the Truth Squad for a second. We got that up? It's impressive, huh? Okay, let me tell you a little bit about this fellow before I brought him out. Roger Ailes was once my manager. You know, he's a show business fellow too. And although I think he's much more famous for helping President Bush into office than me, but you know, he originally, very unorthodox beginnings in America. He was producing the Mike Douglas Show. Remember the Mike Douglas Show on television? And that was a daytime talk show before people came on and exposed their parents as molesting them and all that. So that was before that. And he produced that show, and Richard Nixon was a guest on it once. And Richard Nixon said in Ailes' presence backstage, he said, television is kind of a device. It's sort of a toy, and you can't take it seriously. And Ailes said to him, "You're wrong." And he convinced him backstage, and Nixon hired him. And then I got to know Roger along the way, and of course he kind of invented media advisors. So I was flying with him once from Washington to LA. By coincidence, we were on the same flight. And I said, "What could we do different on a talk show?" And he said to me, "Instead of 4 members of the press reviewing the politicians' efforts the previous week, what about 4 political figures who are outspoken, anecdotal, and have a good, wicked sense of humor reviewing the press the previous 7 days?" So he's not like anybody else. Ladies and gentlemen, meet Roger Ailes. Rog? Good to see you, partner. Come in. First member of the Truth Squad. Now, big news. You're not in the campaign this year.
That's true. I decided not to do the presidential campaign.
Anything you can reveal to us as to why?
Well, there were a lot of personal reasons, but I really think the press is out of control in this country.
To what degree? I mean, yeah? Let me
Well,
hear.
Wait. Let me say.
Yeah.
In fairness to the press, I mean, look, if you want to be a leader, you want to influence millions of people, and you still want to be a womanizer, a drunk, and a drug abuser, you should be a journalist. Because nobody will report on that. They're totally safe.
You'd be immunized, huh?
Yeah, they're totally safe.
Is the president going to be reelected?
Yeah.
You say this without hesitance.
Well, I mean, so far the Democratic Party looks like a group in the green room at Studs. I mean, it's not, you don't, except for Paul Tsongas, who was the only guy who couldn't get a girl. And Tsongas has the best platform because he actually understands the finances. He wants to cut the capital gains tax, make everybody rich so that he can redistribute the wealth and make everybody poor. It's a perfect plan.
What would happen if Cuomo came in? Still couldn't win?
Cuomo would be dangerous.
To Bush?
Yes, he would be dangerous to Bush because even he doesn't believe him. So he would be dangerous. Yeah.
You and he are at loggerheads.
Well, actually, I have a relationship with Mario. He calls me every once in a while. And he called me once and he said, why did you take a shot at me? And I said, you have to understand, George Bush is my friend. You hit him, I hit you. It's like Pavlov's dog. I said, it's just simple. And he did laugh. Kind of a strange laugh.
I haven't seen him laugh.
But he laughed and he said, I wish I had somebody as tough as you on my side. And I said, if you did, you'd fire him. That's why you are going to have trouble getting elected.
Is he out? Is that a device or is he out?
Well, no, I mean, yes, he's out at this point, and Ron Brown says he's out, but nobody listens to Ron Brown, so it doesn't matter. But Ron Brown says he's out. If he could come in at the convention, first of all, if the press keeps knocking off candidates like this, it's down to Jerry Brown, and as they say in Washington, if Jerry Brown is the answer, it has to be a very weird question.
Roger, what would you say, what's your report card on the American press, besides what you said earlier?
A lot of the press do a very good job in this country, truthfully. I pick on them because nobody else will.
No.
And I see this as a mission. But the truth is there are some very good reporters, and ones you might suspect I don't like, I actually think do a pretty good job. But there are some real losers out there in the press who travel in packs like coyotes because they're afraid by themselves. They couldn't get a real job. And basically, they do the same work as garbage men, but they don't have to wear the coveralls. You know what I mean? That's the group.
Is the... how come with CNN now and 7 days, you know, everybody's got more news. Don't you think people know less than they used to? Or do they know more?
No, I think they know less. Certainly the media knows less, and so they're telling us less. And but the problem is we've got MTV News today. We've telescoped our time, as you know. Within 1 week, Bill Clinton was a front runner, a hero, and a schmuck. All within a 7-day period. We have this great need to drive the headlines. And most of these people that I know are neither as bad as the press paints them nor as good as they'd like to think they are, but they are human beings. And the piling on factor is unbelievable. Whatever happened with the Jennifer Flowers girl is one thing, but then to go back and get draft and then BCCI because of some contributor, and tomorrow they'll have him for athlete's foot. I mean, it's not going to, they're going to keep on this guy now till they kill him.
What's Pat Buchanan going to do in New Hampshire?
30%, a little less.
That much?
Yeah, 28, 30. They're saying more. He could do 28 or 30.
Who's paying for all that? You have any idea?
Pat?
Yeah.
People who are mad at George Bush.
Willing to do that? I mean, that kind of a caper?
Yeah, sure, because they want to get his attention and they want to, they're angry at him because he raised taxes.
Buchanan has got an ad saying that unemployment is 3 times as high as when he took office. That's from 5.5% to 7.1%.
Well, it's not good in arithmetic. And fortunately, the president has a guy to do the arithmetic for him. So you don't need to.
You know, I was speaking of the press, I was in the White House when Reagan was there and he had one of those birthdays. He was just 81 the other day. It's really amazing. And Nancy co-opted the press. She came in with a cake and she gave Sam Donaldson the first piece. And he said, and then somebody said, are you going to sell out for a piece of cake? And Reagan suddenly said, he sold out for less than that a long time ago. Who's the worst on television? Reporters. Willing to say that?
Oh, I'm willing to. I can't. You don't have time. Actually, the television journalists are basically trying to make a living, and they don't want to be too controversial, and they are not as bad as many print journalists because they're more hidden. And the print journalists don't need research. If I did a political commercial in a campaign and a reporter said to me, you should take that off, your facts are wrong, I'd take it off the air and I'd be in real trouble. Could lose the race, could lose the job, whatever. But a reporter can put a fact in a story that's wrong, and if you say that fact is wrong, they'll say, well, I punched the nexus of the computer, and that's how it came out. The fact that it went in wrong and it came out wrong, so I say, are you saying to me you have no responsibility as a journalist for original research? And they say, that's correct. And so that's why political consultants' ethics are much higher than journalists. We actually have to check our facts, run it through legal before we run it. Journalists do not. You need a certificate to be a hairdresser, you don't to be a journalist.
The electorate shares your opinion of the press.
What's that?
The electorate shares your opinion of the press. I mean, in the surveys, it's even lower than what they think about politicians, right?
Yeah, and the bad part is there are many good journalists and many people who try hard, and it's really a disservice to the young kids who are trying to go into journalism and be fair and do the right thing and cover the stories. But the truth is, somebody has to say it, and many of them are just out of control. They will not admit that it's an advertising-driven medium. They're there for the bucks. The rating points count. And it's like the mafia in the old days. In the old days, they had to make their bones. They had to kill somebody so that they could be respected by their peers. That's the same way. To go into journalism today, if you destroy somebody's reputation, you're respected by your peers and get a book contract and can make a lot more money than you would as a journalist. So that's your goal. And that's what drives a lot of them.
And in television, it makes so much more.
Oh, sure. Once they get on TV, they get somebody to drive them to work, somebody to tell them they're right before they go on and when they come off. And it's a very nice way to make a living.
Roger is going to be producing the new Rush Limbaugh television show. Can you tell us anything about that, Reg?
Well, I met Rush about a year ago. He's on about 400 radio stations.
Yeah.
He talks to about 8 million people a week in America. He's conservative. But he says, I don't attack anyone. I read the paper in the morning and get up and defend the institutions that made America great. And many people don't like me because we've been conditioned in this country to the Phil Donahue show and gay nuns on dope. And if we want to talk about the flag or anything that is a good American institution, people say that won't play in America. I think Rush and I are going to prove that wrong.
I'd like to ask you myself, are there going to be any newspapers left? I'm watching all the newspapers going.
Well, I hope ones like the Denver Post go out of business, friends. It's a really bad paper. There are some bad papers. And they deserve to fail. I mean, they really do. They haven't kept up with the times. But there'll be a few left of no import.
You mean, how much does the Washington Times lose?
I don't know, several million.
So the Post has got a clear field. They don't have to be good.
No, they don't have to be good. And they don't have to be right.
And the New York Times will be the only paper left in New York.
I actually, Mort, I have to tell you, the New York Times has always been fair with me for some reason. They've continually screwed up, obviously, but they just put the wrong reporter on it. But everything they've ever done with me, they've covered straight. I don't know why that is, and I'm very deeply suspicious of it. But I have to give credit where it's due. They have not been out of control.
Are you going to miss this? I mean, going back to the show business full time?
No, I don't think so. I got into it by a fluke. You mentioned that I did it on the Mike Douglas show. Actually, that was a talk show. We used to have everybody who was in town because it was one of the early talk shows. So you'd have Dr. Edward Teller and Wrestling Bears next to each other in the thing. And it's a true story. And one day I had an associate producer come in and say, we have Little Egypt, the belly dancer, remember?
Yeah.
In the green room with a snake, and we've got Nixon coming in the front door. What do we do? It's a true story. So I said, put one of them in my office. I didn't. and they put Nixon in my office. And I got into an argument with him, as you correctly pointed out. But I've always wondered, had they put Little Egypt in my office, if I wouldn't have had a hell of a lot more fun in my career.
Thanks, Raj. Thank you. Roger Enough with the politics. I mentioned at the beginning of the show, I promised we'd talk a little bit about Freud's formula for being a successful person, work and love. And I don't know if I mentioned it to you, but at the risk of redundancy, living in Los Angeles, we've got more analysts than anything. Somebody said, obviously in an oversimplification, that one half of the town is analyzing the other half. and they're not getting any better. Really, what I'm trying to say in this segment, I know where romance came from. I don't know where you can find it. I think it was invented by the worst propagandists we ever had, the Hollywood writers. Those lonely guys in the hotel rooms who kept dreaming up Jean Arthur and Barbara Stanwyck, Audrey Hepburn, et al. And we grew up thinking that if we run the race the correct way and if we win, we'll get the prize. But women bought into all the fantasy too. It seems to me that the thesis in modern life that men don't need women and women don't need men, there's something wrong with that. I think there's no measurement of whether you're a man except in the eye of a woman. Now, I was, and vice versa. I was watching, in other words, to really find your opposite number and to have a kid, the real vengeance is not to go to an analyst and complain about your father. It's to be a better father. I mean, I think Freud pointed it out only better some time ago. Well, right? So, to make it better than you found it, to propagate, not to remain uninvolved and uncommitted. So, I believe there's a hunger in the heart. I don't believe there's any use in winning. I've heard all about economic security, but I don't know what winning is anyway. I heard somebody the other day talking to McCarthy up in New Hampshire. They said, "You're a loser." And he said, "What is your definition of a winner, Jimmy Carter?" So those are easy examples. So anyway, we chose some movies. We chose some movies from the Endless Monitor movie library to keep you in touch. Now, I've been getting a lot of mail. How much mail have I been getting, Mort? I got one letter. For me, that's a lot of mail. I'm happy. I remain humble. They said, "You keep going back over these news clips. You keep talking about the past." I'm not nostalgic. John Chancellor wrote a book. He said, "The 50s are wonderful." What does he say? We had Bill Haley in the Comets and Elvis Presley. He doesn't mention Joe McCarthy or the Korean War. We had that too. I'm not so anxious to go back. And as I'll develop with you here in the next couple of minutes, I think we have to go forward and we have to build on the past. But in the spirit in which I'm approaching you, I chose a new movie. I'm not only going to show you a clip of a new movie, I'm going to explain to you what it means, which most commercial theaters won't do for you. This movie... This movie's about romance, but the woman in it, this movie's called Regarding Henry. It's about terrible tragedy that befalls a lawyer. And even though it's supposed to be a modern movie, the writer and Mike Nichols, the director, make the wife, Annette Bening, into wallpaper. She doesn't have any opinions at all. But anyway, let's take a look at this insensitive, money-grubbing, killer shark New York lawyer. Go over here. Regarding Henry.
Oh, what about the Rosenberg
Finish,
record?
please. I need that Martinson deposition on my desk by 9 o'clock tomorrow morning. And call my wife and tell her I can't make dinner at 7:30.
Cold.
Tell her to call the Whoozits and make it 8:30 instead.
Yes, sir.
Tragedy is coming.
Give me a break, will you? I just want a pack of cigarettes.
Okay, random shot. Brain damage.
Cardiac arrest caused lack of oxygen to the brain.
And he learns to think again and becomes a great guy.
Does this bother you?
No,
Why are you looking at me like that?
because you never used to hold my hand.
Oh,
You didn't like showing affection in public. It bothered you.
why?
I don't know why.
You don't know why?
No.
Me either.
And not only that, he loves his children, and he buys a dog. This guy's got love left over. He's so good. What does this movie mean? Does it mean that each lawyer could do with a little shooting? I don't know. The beginning of romance is when the male and female circle each other, as potential candidates, very warily. The clip I chose to illustrate this is from Gentleman's Agreement. It's a movie about anti-Semitism, but forget that, because it's built on a romance. All the good ones are love stories in any arena anyway. Notice how open the man is and how devious Dorothy McGuire is.
Are you engaged to anybody? Or in love or anything?
Not especially.
Oh.
Are you?
Not anything.
Not anything. See, it's there. But it's still inspiring. So now we'll move this ahead. Now, if you get the right girl, you can go on and be better. I know this is hard to believe for those of you getting your MBAs, I think women are dead weight, but no, get the right woman, you can be terrific. She can even become your conscience. To illustrate that point, I chose a movie called Body and Soul with Lily Palmer and John Garfield, in which he becomes so corrupt as the heavyweight champion that he's willing to throw a fight to the interests that are going to bribe him, the promoters, and he wants his wife to take the money out of the bank so he can bet it on the other guy. But she won't move. She's his conscience. Take a look at this.
It's my money, isn't it? I take the beatings and you take the dough, like all the rest of them. Well, this time I'm taking care of the dough. Give me back that 60 grand.
Yeah, that's right. I'm like the rest of them. So you want your money back? Well, take it back. And everything else you've given me. Here! What everybody gives you. The long years of happiness, the promises broken, the lonely nights.
Yeah, right. Notice in 1947, she didn't have to be empowered by the Congress. Because she knows who she is. And he's at his best when he loves her. It makes him a better person. Now, why am I interested in this? Because sometimes the winning of the girl, the prize, becomes a metaphor for politics. I think that one of the reasons you're not drawn to any of these candidates in a passionate way is that they don't look like men who don't love anything. That's what held up Nelson Rockefeller. You got to look like you love something. You got to look, The Quest. The Quest is going to be in the next section. But the movie I chose for this is The Professionals. A rich man absconds with a girl and he legally marries her. But she's in love with a Mexican bandit who comes and takes her away. The wealthy guy says she's been kidnapped, sends 4 men to bring her back. But that's all a lie. And one of them, Burt Lancaster, stops her lover, the Mexican bandit, wounds him, but they've been compadres working for Pancho Villa during a better time in both their lives. And they discuss women and revolution.
The revolution? When the shooting stops and the dead are buried and the politicians take over, it all adds up to one thing: a lost cause.
So, you want perfection or nothing? Oh,
You're too romantic, compadre. La revolucion is like a great love affair. The beginning, she is a goddess, a holy cause. But every love affair has a terrible enemy. Time. We see her as she is. La revolucion is not a goddess, but a whore. She was never pure, never saintly, never perfect. We run away. Find another lover, another cause. Quick, sordid affairs. Lust, but no love. Passion, but no compassion. Without love, without a cause, we are nothing. We stay because we believe. We live because we are disillusioned. We come back because we are lost.
That's right. So in other words, when Hollywood was talking in that idiom all those years, they'd look at a script and they'd try and assess its worth by saying, who gets the girl? That's what you want to know with your next president. Any number of guys want to exploit the girl and move on to new conquests and enrich themselves. You got to find somebody who can love the girl. In other words, America's the girl. Now that was easy. That's how to fall in love. Now I'm going to show you how to make your life meaningful. I'll be back in 30 seconds. The romance was to make the world a less lonely place. That's why the writers dreamed up all that, the personal thing between men and women. Now, the other thing that keeps you from going crazy is to define your meaning. You have to grow or decay. You can't stand still and keep looking for new restaurants every weekend. That's what courage is in America, going into a restaurant that hasn't been reviewed yet. Boy. Okay, now we go to a movie written by H.G. Wells and commissioned by G.B. Shaw in, you remember Shaw? Who said, a woman who demands her equality renounces her superiority? Movie's called Things to Come. It was made in 1936. That's going to look corny to a lot of you, but I ask you to forgive that. It isn't Steven Spielberg, and it isn't George Lucas, but it's got a heart at the center. It's about war being outlawed by a group of technocrats, progressive scientists who outlaw war. They make a very dynamically progressive society. But they have their critics too, who keep saying, why can't we be happy? We're hermetically sealed from the atmosphere. Why do we have to go to the stars? Why do we have to do it? Why can't we just lead our lives and not get involved? And finally, their children are leaving to go to Mars. So bear with me, because I think this has some value for all of us. Just things to come.
There we go. That faint gleam of light. I feel that what we've done is monstrous. What they've done is magnificent. Will they come back? Yes, and go again and again, till the landing is made and the moon is conquered. This is only a beginning. If they don't come back, my son and your daughter, what of that canal? Then presently others will go. But we're such little creatures. Poor humanity is so fragile, so weak. Little animals. Little animals. And if we're no more than animals, we must snatch each little scrap of happiness and live and suffer and pass, mattering no more than all the other animals do or have done. It is this that? All the universe for nothing. Which shall it be? Which shall it be?
All the universe or nothing. Now, 32 years, that's a little different, than Lyndon Johnson taking over from Kennedy and saying, I'm moving the space program from Cape Kennedy in Florida to Houston because it's closer to the moon. That's different. Now, 32 years later, that theme of man searching for his upper limit, what pilots call, I suppose in the vernacular, pushing the envelope, is in the movie Marooned. 3 American astronauts go up there, and they have no retrofire, and they can't get back. And the press, you remember our old friends, the press, from the last segment? They come in and question Gregory Peck, the head of manned space. And they say, are you sorry now? Because these guys are going to die up there. And here's his press conference.
Do you have any other questions?
Mr. Keith, there's a general assumption that the space program will be brought to a halt for an investigation of the accident, plus a general examination of our purposes in space and the morality of putting men into space without adequate...
What's your question?
Are the results you gained worth the lives you lost?
You're damn right they are. You want to know what they accomplished living up there in a tin can for 5 months? Because of men like these, we've taken the first step off this little planet. The trip to the moon was just to walk around the block. We're going to the stars.
Yeah. Now, isn't it a shame that we can't find anybody running to be our leader who talks to us like that? Oh, yeah. Oh. We go to the movies, and the movies are very facile, all the R-rated movies. What's the new movie rating? IQ 40. The movies are facile at telling us why we should jump into bed with a stranger, usually. But what we need is a president who will tell us why we should get out of bed in the morning. I'm just going to close with one thing I want. Oh, sure. You never let me down. The audience as a collective has never let me down for 38 years. I know you're ready for the task if somebody will point the way. We're not cynical in America. We're not even skeptical. What we are is disappointed because we believed. And, disappointed romantics, well, they're the saddest people of all. What I'm saying is don't immunize yourself and do get involved. And, I was at Arlington Cemetery once. Speaking of grand adventures, this is just a few steps. And I was looking for Jack Kennedy's grave, and it was raining. The weather was terrible. I'm from California. Rain is a national catastrophe. And I'm looking all around, and here come 2 kids in parkas, young. I mean, these are really the kind of people that, live in a tree. All the kind of people that used to go to San Francisco. I used to live there, too. You remember San Francisco? It's like they tipped America, and all the crazy people slid into one corner. Yeah, we knew that. And these 2 kids, I was starting to say, is Jack Kennedy's grave? I didn't even have to say it. They said, it's this way. And the kid walked back to show it to me. I guess he'd been there. And it was really muddy. He says, there's just a shortcut here. And the rain is coming down and the mud is coming down the hill. And I started to go around and he said, here. And I looked up at him and the last thing he said to me was, he said, it's steep and it's slippery, but it's worth it. So I say that to you too. Good night, everybody. Thank you for coming.